Which celebrity did you meet and found they were much kinder / ruder than you expected? Kinda. In 2017 I sat next to John Cusack on a 90-minute flight, just the two of us. I'd luckily been upgraded to business class. He was clearly trying to be incognito, so I said nothing and gave him his space. Eventually he started engaging me and I got to gush about how big a fan I was and even compliment him on his choreography in a scene in War Incorporated. He seemed genuinely thrilled with the compliment and started enthusiastically telling me about the training he does, etc. Graciously agreed to a photo once we landed, and as he was leaving he turned around to tell me to wish my mother a happy Mother's Day. It was Mother's Day weekend. 10/10ths awesome guy. Also, Chad Kroger. Incredibly down to earth and kind, no matter what you think of his music. Met him backstage in 2002 when they were absolutely massive. At one point I approached him and asked him a couple questions about the main riff on one of their older tracks. And he was like, "You play one of our songs? I need to see this." And got a guitar tech to tune an acoustic to drop D and had me play the whole thing. Not only did he seem super happy, but he even spent like 10 minutes teaching me some of the nuances to the riffs and the solo. Put me in a headlock for a photo, etc. I grew out of their music long ago, but I would 100% shake that guy's hand if I ever see him again. I was about 8 when I stumbled across Stephen King. He was in a rush getting out of a limo into a building, so I quick shouted, "Mr. King, I love Cujo." He gave me a bemused smile and said, "Who the hell let this kid read Cujo?" Bobby Flay is a complete douche. I worked with Mads Mikkelsen. He is the nicest person you will ever meet. Zero ego. Just a pleasure to work with. Saw Ryan Gosling at my brother's graduation. His mom was graduating with a master's degree from same school. Ryan sat in front of me. He clapped for every kid who got on stage to get their diploma. I was so tired from such a long ceremony that I almost didn't even clap for my brother. Haven't had many rude experiences, but I can definitely attest that Michael Fassbender was a kind man who acted more excited to meet me than I was to meet him. Very satisfied by that experience. I met Penn and Teller in New York City when they did some New York City shows one year. They had a meet and greet and I got to meet both of them. I was kinda starstruck because I was a big fan, but they were super cool about it. And it was really weird for Teller to talk to me. Also, Teller isn't short. Penn is just peeping huge. Nick Offerman is a gem of a human being. He came to my small college in an Illinois suburb for a book tour thing, and I was in an a cappella group at the time and we were rehearsing in the building where he was doing the signing and he accidentally walked in on us and ended up staying to listen to a song. Complimented us, hung out for 5 minutes, and signed stuff for all of us. Super genuine. Funny guy. I always figured Stephen Amell from Arrow would be a chill dude, but I did not expect him to remember me from a Facebook interaction we had months prior to meeting. He's such a nice guy. A buddy of mine met Jason Momoa and Ezra Miller twice each, and they both gleefully shouted his name the second time. A few years ago Tenacious D played a concert in Kuala Lumpur. The building the concert was in was pretty small, and there's no way they made a lot of money from the show. Despite that, after the show was over, Jack Black came back out on the stage and just chatted and joked around with people for like an hour. My buddy yelled out, "I love your shirt." Jack Black yelled back, "I love your shirt. Trade me." Then he took off his shirt and threw it to my buddy, who threw his shirt to Jack Black. Jack Black threw my friend's shirt back after pretending to try it on. My friend is much thinner than Black. Haha. And then told him to keep his shirt from the concert. It was a great experience. Brad Pitt is a top-notch guy in real life. I met him in Malta while he was filming Troy. I was guiding a group of students as a group leader on a holiday trip and we saw Pitt just walking out of a cafe. He took time to take lots of pictures with all the kids and was really nice to everyone. Among my group were a bunch of teenage girls who almost fainted. Hilarious day all around. Second story. A friend worked at the Reagan Library and Adam Sandler visited with his kids. She said he was really friendly and super accommodating with fans. He only asked they not bother or photograph his kids, which is totally fair. I met Renée Zellweger, and she was so much kinder than I ever could have imagined. This was when Hurricane Harvey hit Texas. I was working at Austin Pets Alive, and we took in thousands of animals from hard-hit areas. It was insane. One day Renée Zellweger just showed up to volunteer. No warning. No fanfare. In fact, the only reason I noticed her is that she was wearing long sleeves and long pants, and it was August in Texas. She spent a week volunteering. She did laundry, cleaned out poop-covered crates, and drove vans of dogs from Houston to Austin. Not a pleasant job with the smell and the barking. I hope this doesn't get buried, because she was truly amazing. So nice and hardworking. The laundry room was next to my office, so we became friendly over the week she was there. There are multiple news articles about this, so it's legit. Forever a fan. Undefined. Was at the Blue Lagoon in Iceland and someone floated by me that I recognized, but couldn't put a name to it. I kept stealing glances at him to try and figure out who he was. When I finally figured out it was Ryan Gosling, he must have seen the realization on my face, because he smiled at me, winked, and put his finger over his lips in a SHHHH gesture. I think no one else had recognized him. He had a full beard. Left him alone, as you do, but I'll always remember that wink. Kristen Bell, one of the most sweetest, down-to-earth people you'll ever meet. I worked at a high-end hotel spa and she came in on one of our most busiest weekends and was so patient. Most celebrities I encountered booked with aliases and through an assistant. She just called in on her own and booked as any other person would. This seems like the bare minimum, but I've had some super needy celebrity guests. She is also an extremely generous tipper. She is the exact person that she appears in TV interviews. Brent Hines from Mastodon was the biggest asshole I've ever met back in 2009. Met him again in 2012, and he invited me to join him for drinks at a local bar, where we talked for hours, and he turned out to be the coolest famous person I've ever met. Turns out, sometimes people just have a bad day. Not really kind or rude, but I was in line for Ron Perelman's autograph, and I heard him tell his staff at least 3 times that he had to pee. They kept encouraging him to keep signing and getting the fans out of the venue, and he just kept on until the distress on his face was visible. He finally just said "F*** it" and started walking to the bathroom. I just happened to be in his way, and one of his handlers tried to get him to come back when he just snapped and said loudly, "I have to piss," simultaneously pulling away from his handlers and shoving me out of the way. I got hit by Hellboy. Not even mad. Kinda, Hugh Jackman. He's known for being nice, but I didn't expect him to be so genuine and actually keep the conversation going, and to keep asking questions and showing interest. It must be exhausting considering how many people he meets every day, yet he is always on. Ruder, Will Ferrell. He's known for being rude and mean, and I thought maybe it was exaggerated as people might expect him to be nice and funny and are disappointed when he's not. He was okay to me, as in he didn't talk any speep, but I saw him being a complete and utter prick to others. Mr. T. When I was in high school early 1990s, my friends and I worked at a golf course that was across the street from Mr. T's house. During lunch, my friends and I would walk 5 minutes to the downtown area for lunch. One day while we are walking to lunch, Mr. T was pulling into his gated driveway. We said, "Hey Mr. T," and waved at him. He asked us what we were doing, and after finding out we were going to lunch, he invited us to have lunch with him, since that is what he was doing. We are sitting on his patio eating grilled chicken with Mr. T telling stories about growing up poor and working really hard to earn what he had. He talked a lot about family and its importance to him. It was pretty surreal. Mr. T was just the persona. He was actually a very funny, down-to-earth and truthfully empathetic guy. Every day after that, whenever we would see Mr. T, he would always say hi and take a few minutes to chat. and everything was always so positive. I always greatly respected him after that day. I went to an Adio shoe skate event at a mall in Oklahoma City. The Adio team skaters were all there signing merch and posters. Of all the skaters who were there, Bam Margera was the one I was most excited to meet. In my head I kept thinking, this guy's going to slap me or say something mean. But it will be funny. That's just who he is. I get up to his table, kinda stutter a bit, and all I could say was, I only skate element boards and I love you. Damn it, I felt so stupid. 14 years old, and I just embarrassed myself. He replied, I only skate element 2 man. And I love you too. He looks at my feet, and I'm wearing the purple Bam Adio shoes. Your shoes are peep though. You skate a lot. I said, yeah, every single day, unless it's raining. If that guy didn't just melt my heart right there. He comes back with another pair of purple Bam Adio shoes too big for me at the time, but that was fine, and signed the box. Then he brought me some rubber soft trucks, so I could attach them to my board and skate indoors when it was raining. Then he grabbed a fresh Bam purple and white element board, signed it, and handed it over. He told me, listen here peeper, you skate every day. Don't let anything hold you back. I hope one day I see you on TV too. Maybe we could skate together sometime. That was over 15 years ago. I still hope to one day be able to skate with him, even if for only a few minutes. Bam. I'm still waiting on you. I'm still skating. Undefined. Thanks for the gold and silver. Second. I posted this before, so I just more or less copy paste. Dave Grohl and the Foo Fighters. Met him and the band the night before they played a concert in our town. I was with a friend in a random ass empty bar and all of a sudden they walk in and sit at a table. My friend freaked out and wanted to go over to them, but I felt like nah, I'll leave them be. But she couldn't resist. Took a confidence shot and walked over. She chatted with them for a few minutes and soon waved me over. I got over there as well and shook hands with everybody. Dave was really nice and asked us if we would come to the show the next day, but of course, it was sold out months ago. He said not to worry and that he would put us on his ghost list. We kept talking for a few more minutes, but soon left because we didn't want to disrupt them too much, even though they didn't act as if we would bother them at all. The next day went to the venue. We didn't have too much hope though. We thought he probably forgot, but we wanted to try anyway. And who would have thought? He didn't forget. We were on his ghost list and we absolutely had the best time of our life. Dave Grohl really is the nicest person of rock and roll. Undefined. David Beckham, not just a nice guy, but when his kids came to the secret event we were filming, and some people spotted them, he came across and told the public who could see him that he'd do any photos or signings they liked, but to please leave his kids alone as they were not in the public eye and he wanted them to be afforded privacy. Good dad. Jamie Lee Curtis. We chatted about cameras for ages before I realized who she was after we finished chatting. She had a very nice leaker. Skater Kristen Bell was an absolute diamond. Playing with someone's kids on set between rehearsals. I fell a little bit in love watching her. Eartha Kitt, despite being mid-80s. She was doing 2 shows a day and would still use the show interval for a fan meet and greet. Then her rider was a salmon salad sandwich. A true star with true humility. I won't go on about the dickheads. They tend to be mid-famous on the way up. The bottom rung are just so happy to be entertaining. The top rung have nothing to prove. I saw Bryan Cranston at the Space Needle, didn't ogle, but made eye contact. He knew I recognized him, but I didn't say anything. Oddly later that same day saw him in a nearby bar. He paid for a round for my friend and I as he left. Pretty sure he appreciated not bothering him. Super nice. Sally Ride. The first American woman in space. I was in the 4th grade, and I had a science project to do. My mom found out that Sally Ride would be in the Tri-State area giving a lecture on her experiences as an astronaut. There were Q&A cards that were given at the beginning of the show and my mom filled on out without me knowing. She wrote what would be the most interesting opinion/fact you could give a 4th grader who is doing a science project. She answered how she believed that there is no way we humans are alone in the galaxy. After the show, one of her backstage guys came up to me and my parents and said, "I bet you are the one here for a science project." I was pretty much the only kid at the lecture and asked if I would like to meet Sally. We got VIP passes and I met her backstage. She was really kind and soft spoken, and my mom has the photo of us together. I was in room service for many years. The best was when Snoop Dogg rented out the entire floor. It was the smoking floor. But it wasn't long until the whole hotel smelled like it. His whole floor ordered a lot of room service, tipped well, and left behind a little something. Don Magic Jewin was there too, handing out backstage passes to staff. Best work weekend ever. Alexander Skarsgard is very nice and patient. I met him while he was in town filming a scene for Hold the Dark. He told me about the project and what scenes they were filming here. I used to work in the music and film industry as a grunt when I was in my early 20s, so I've met a lot of celebrities. George Clooney was the nicest one, so down to earth, and would play practical jokes on the entire crew very regularly. He had these t-shirts made for every crew member to wear with the director's picture on the cover of People's Sexiest Man Alive. Lol. This was not an attractive director, it was kind of a joke between them, I guess. He had his car drive people home if buses weren't on schedule or whatever. He'd eat lunch with the crew rather than in his trailer. I had the pleasure of working a show on a David Bowie tour he did in theaters. Every member of his band made a point to thank the crew members. IDK if Bowie himself did it, but I wouldn't be surprised. Chrissy Hind the Pretenders was also awesome and talked to everyone. Didn't act like she was even a celebrity in the least. The assholes I've met are too many to count. But some who I didn't expect to be jerks were Marilyn Manson. IDK, why I didn't expect it. But the guy was a huge douchebag. Paul Simon was also kind of a dick. Prince was a huge weirdo who wouldn't let anybody even look at him. I met Liam Hemsworth at a supermarket in a small coastal town in Australia earlier this year. I almost didn't even notice it was him as he fit in seamlessly, being the down-to-earth, laid-back Aussie guy he is. He was super nice and genuine and even made an effort to thank the employees and the store security on his way out. Weird Al. We got to do a meet and greet with him after a long show, and this guy works his ass off in his shows, multiple costume changes, and never stops moving. He was exhausted, but took the time to chat with me about places to buy the kind of zoot suit he wore on stage. I told him about a place in Seattle, and he told me about a place in St. Louis. Super nice even though he was so obviously worn out. Robin Williams was shooting a film in my city. He stopped by the nearest senior home just to say hello and take pictures with the residents. No other reason than to brighten up their day. Class act of man. My grandma was a resident. I met Gordon Ramsay once at a book signing event. I was just walking around the area and ran into him on his free time. He was actually so nice and down to earth. Talked about food for a few minutes and how he's liking his trip so far. Super nice guy and nothing like you see on his cooking shows. I've worked in a couple presenting theaters, as in they don't produce their own shows. They hire traveling acts in the box office. The theater I worked at in college had Jerry Seinfeld, which sold out in 25 minutes by the end of my shift. My cash out was $8,200 in cash alone. Largest stack I've ever held. The staff had to have a special meeting before the event to discuss Seinfeld's rider, because his rider included a clause that no front of house staff were allowed backstage while he was in the building. So we couldn't use the backstage bathrooms or the break room. We were also contractual required to avert our eyes if we happened to run into him. Most stupid bullspeep ever. Met Jason Momoa at a con a few years back when I only knew him from Game of Thrones. His positive energy and sense of humor is very disarming despite him being so big and imposing. I met Fred Rogers, Mr. Rogers' Neighborhood, several times. He was exactly as nice and kind and wonderful as you'd think he was. Kristen Bell is absolutely wonderful. I had an opportunity to meet her on a set within a month of her having one of her kids. Despite I assume being exhausted, she spent time with everyone and took tons of pictures. I ran into her again several months later and she remembered my name and called out to me from across the room. Really genuine and kind. Robin Williams was the kindest human being as you'd expect. He used to ski where my family does. One day I was out in rather blizzardy conditions and my mom was sitting inside noticeably worried. He chatted with her and told jokes to relax her. Another time, someone was inside with crutches following a bad fall, and he just checked in on him to ensure he was okay and to ask if he needed anything. I'm still gutted over his death as he truly was everything you'd expect. I mean, I expected Matthew McConaughey to be nice, but he was just so thoughtful and engaging. Truly a great experience meeting him. The Rock was nicer than I'd heard he was. Super chill, kind, and even signed a couple of autographs for me to give my sisters. Michael Sheen. He does a lot of charity work for our shared hometown. I had no idea just how well known he was as a kid. Years ago he spent a night bowling with our youth club. It's been a decade, and I'm still blown away by how caring and genuine he was. He's always doing something wonderful for the people in South Wales, and every time I hear about what he's up to I still can't believe my luck that I met him. He's the best of the Welsh. Kinda, Nicole Kidman. To be fair, this was back in the 80s, before she hit the big time. She was, however, making movies then, and had a profile. I did ask her what it was like, being in films and she replied, "Oh good. But, you know, Tom Burlinson, her then boyfriend gets all the good roles." She struck me as a very genuine, decent person. Seth Rogen. Kinda. I saw him at a movie premiere and said, "Oh my god, it's Seth Rogen." He looked at me and said, "Oh my god," in the same excited tone. Posted this story a few years ago. I met Gordon Ramsay in Cape Town about 7 years ago. He was at the same bar as me. I recognized him almost instantly when I saw him and kinda freaked out, but didn't want to miss the opportunity. I went up and said hello, half hoping he would call me a donut or but 2 slices of bread on my head. But he was really nice and asked me how I was. I told him I loved his shows and recipes, and he offered to buy me a drink. Overall really nice man, and his demeanor is very calming. Almost ASMR. I felt at ease. I hope he is doing well. Also I recall a comedian being impressed when he met an old Schwarzenegger. The man has a bodyguard who has to stop him from talking to a single fan for too long. Otherwise he would have never stopped on time for the rest of the fans to get their turn to speak to him. Imagine being so nice to your fans that you need someone to stop you. Undefined.